Hello, welcome back. How have you been? How's your nan? Right, well, the last few videos I've done have all been about my little island, my little world building project, so I thought we'd have a bit of a palette cleanser today. I've mentioned in some of my previous videos that I'm not a really strong painter, so I've been watching a lot of YouTube miniature painting tutorials to sort of pick up some skill, which inevitably ended up with me going on the 40k rabbit hole. So yeah, I'm going to do an orc. I like orcs. When I was about 14, my dad took me to a games workshop and he bought me about 80 quid's worth of orcs, which, well, that's a lot of money to spend on orcs. I didn't even open the box. But I did read the companion book and I absolutely fell in love with orcs. I remember reading that book cover to cover, just learning about like the orc biology and their culture and their technology and why they love war so much. Yeah, good stuff. Despite learning that, some of you might think this is a cheap ploy to get more views by talking about an established franchise. Anyway, should we start? Right then, we're off. I got this base mesh from a guy online called Zbro or Zbro. This is what I normally use if I'm just going to do a bust. It's a pretty good one. At the moment I'm just masking off areas and doing some big changes, a lot of big pushing and pulling. Trying to get this guy as thick as a brick. I sculpt a lot of sort of meaty, hard man, tough guy faces. And I almost always use Ron Perlman as reference. I think he's got one of the best faces in Hollywood. Apparently he's got the world record for the most roles wearing prosthetic makeup, but it always seems stupid to me to cover up a face like that. But what do I know, I'm not a director. I'm just a grown man making monsters in his shed. What am I doing now? Just putting in those jaw muscles. This guy's jaw is clearly very big, so those muscles have got to pop. Trying to get that Ron Perlman monkey lip in. Yikes. Right, well, there's no point in me telling you about what's going on the screen. You've got eyes, this is a video, that's why you're here. Let's do a little bit of learning about the orcs. Hang on, let me just have a little... orcs, 10 things you didn't know about. There we go, done. Let's read this, shall we? While orcs in various forms of fantasy such as D&D are often a race with biology not too unlike that of a human, in Warhammer things are never that simple. When it comes to the biology of orcs, in Warhammer 40k, orcs are beings made up of two distinct parts, one which is that of a living breathing animal and one which is fungal. So yeah, orcs are half mushroom and they're completely asexual. They were genderless before it was cool. So rather than bumping uglies, and those uglies would be pretty ugly, they release like a cloud of mushroom spores into the air, and then one of those spores will land in a nice damp spot and a little patch of mushrooms will grow, and then underneath those mushrooms in the earth a little orc fetus will grow in a cozy fungal womb, and when it's cooked all the way through it bursts out the ground ready to go. Next fact. When it comes to the mentality of orcs in Warhammer, they most often only have one thing on their mind: fighting. These orcs are incredibly violent beings that when not fighting often contemplate on how they could instigate a fight or join one that has already begun. While there are billions of orcs in the world of Warhammer, this mentality is one of the reasons they aren't a larger intergalactic threat. If orcs are not in the middle of a conflict with a different faction, they will often begin killing each other simply for the sake of fighting. I don't think I need to elaborate any more on that. Orcs like to fight, just like your parents. Next fact. Despite what one may think when initially looking at an orc, they give off an incredibly powerful psychic aura. While the majority of these orcs aren't bright enough to use this directly, or even know that it exists, this psychic aura causes anything that orcs believe to become true. If an orc picked up an unloaded gun, but each other orc it is battling alongside told her that the gun was loaded because they believed it was, the gun would successfully fire. Branching from their imaginative powers, orcs of Warhammer 40k have a very unique application of colours when painting vehicles, machines and even themselves. Specifically, orcs believe that colours that an object is painted provided with corresponding characteristics. Due to their psychic collaborative imagination, these colours do in fact make an impact. For example, they believe painting something black will make it tougher, they believe painting something red will make it move faster, and they believe that anything can be improved by painting it green, as green is their natural skin colour. To be fair, I think there's something to this. If I'm at home and I'm looking in the fridge for, I don't know, a little jar of mustard or something, and I can't find it, I know it's not there. I'll pull out everything that's in that fridge. Be nothing in there whatsoever. And I'll ask my wife if she's seen any mustard, and she will swear down that it is in that fridge, but I know for a fact it isn't. Just because she believes it, she can go in that fridge, tear a hole in space-time, reach into another dimension, and pull out a little jar of mustard. And it's just, at this point, I just wish she'd use her powers for good. Next fact. Despite being one of the most savage factions in Warhammer, orcs do in fact have access to their own medics called pain boys. Unfortunately for orcs, these doctors are far from the most reliable. If an orc is injured and goes to a pain boy for assistance, there is a sizable chance that a pain boy will cause more harm than good, performing unnecessary surgeries such as giving an orc an extra appendage. It doesn't sound too unnecessary. Next fact. Believe it or not, orcs are not entirely ruled by chaos. In fact, there is a hierarchy and structure to their society. However, this hierarchy is as straightforward as it is brutal. Plain and simple, the biggest and strongest orcs are in charge, while the smallest and weakest of their kind are at the bottom of the totem pole. If another orc wants to be in charge, they need to kill the orc currently at the helm, providing that they are the strongest. It is for this reason that one of the most revered and respected of all orcs is Gazgul Mag Urik Thraka. Jesus. Well, Jesus isn't part of his name. Next fact. Despite being savage brutes, the orcs originally are actually similar to that of Warhammer's space elves, the Eldar. Originally called the Kroaks, they were created by a group of beings of immense power called the Great Old Ones. Their initial purpose was to serve as warriors in the Great Old One's ancient war against the Necron menace that threatened the universe. My god. So yeah, millions of years ago, the orcs used to be a race of psychic-powered super beings. But after tens of millions of years, they've just devolved into cockneys, really. Next fact. Though first and foremost, orcs revere violence and combat above all else, they are known to worship two gods, Mork and Mindy. No, Gork and Mork. While pantheons of gods often feature gods of specific concepts, orcs describe the jurisdictions of these gods as Gork is brutal and cunning, and Mork is cunning and brutal. So yeah, that's it. 10 facts about orcs. I'm not sure if it was 10. I'm dyslexic, I've got to take my socks off to count to 20. Either way, I hope they all learned something together. Well, that went on longer than I thought. We're sort of getting to the end of the sculpting process now. I'm just doing some of the final details on the base, getting it all rusty and sort of battle hardened. Orc technology is normally just random panels bolted together, so that's the sort of thing I'm going for. Just getting some rivets in these panels, they would make everything look a lot cooler. Thought these welds were a nice touch, they're just giving it that orcish slap together, haphazard sort of look. Rough and ready, like your mum. Did you see that cheeky bit of branding then? Blink and you miss it. Well, that's it. I think we're at the end of the sculpting. Oh. Hang on, there's someone at the door. I'm expecting a package. Back in a sec.
Is he gone? Right, now there's just you and me. I'd like you to leave a comment or subscribe. Or at least smash that like button. Smash that like button like I smash my enemies. Smash that like button like Games Workshop smashes down fanbase. Smash that like button like you smash your only chance at happiness. Oh, hang on. He's coming back. Ta-ra.
Right, I'm back. Got a new microphone from Amazon through the post. Sounds a lot better, right? The last microphone I pretty much had to put inside me to get it to work. Didn't even buy me a drink. There we are, that's the print done. Look the size are you? Should we do some sorcery through the power of editing? Shit. Hang on. No. 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 Yes? No. Ooh, thank fuck for that. It's going to be a short video. Right, it's time to paint. As I've said a few times before, I'm a little bit colourblind. So my workaround this time was literally taking some reference photos to my local games workshop, which is now called Warhammer, and I got the fella there to pick me out a bunch of colours. And to be fair, I think he did a good job. What you just saw just then was me giving it a coat of like a greeny dark brown, and then I gave it a zenithal highlight. It doesn't really show through in the final paint, but I take a couple of photos and it lets me know where the shadows lie. Saves me a bit of work. Then I sponged on 2 greens. What I like about these contrast paints is how I think they work is there's a heavy pigment suspended in a thin liquid, so the pigment sinks into all the deep recesses. But if you sponge it with a rough sponge, it forces all the pigment into tiny little pools, so it gives you a nice sort of textured finish. That's how I think it works anyway. I'm probably talking shit. Then I mixed up a purple with that original green to paint in all these shadows. And that's where the original photos of the zenithal highlight come in handy then. It all looks a bit harsh at the moment, but I blend it out later. After that, I gave the face a nice dry brush with some yellow to make it pop a little bit more. I was trying to add a bit of warmth to the face, which is a bit difficult to do when you got green skin. Lastly, on the skin I flicked on a lot of brown and yellow. I really like this stage because it just makes everything come alive. Gives a lot of translucency and realism to the skin. I had to sacrifice my last toothbrush to do this. And with the cost of living at the moment, I'm probably never going to brush my teeth again. Right, onto the metal bits now. I find these a lot easier to paint. Skin's got loads of colours that blend together in certain ways, but metal's metal, right? So all I've done here is just put a nice thick black coat on, and then come back and just dry brushed on some silver, which already looks really good, I think. Again, just putting some of that silver on his head tube, brain pipe, skull sausage, whatever. As we talked about earlier, orcs like to paint things different colours, and those different colours have different effects. Red makes things go faster, so I don't really know why you'd paint your jaw red. Unless you talk with a slow, boring, monotone voice. But I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm using my dry brush to do these white bits, because I want this to look like it's been painted badly, but in a good way. It's best not to hit the high points, so it looks like the paint's worn off over time, but as you can see here, I failed that. Not sure what this tongue colour is. I have to get my wife to mix it for me. I asked her to mix me a drink after, and she told me to fuck off. Now I'm getting these teeth to be a nice yellowy brown, which is the same colour mine are going to be since I've sacrificed my only toothbrush. I gave them a dark brown wash after that to sink into all the little cracks and make them look nice and rotten. Then I dry brushed the whole mouth with a bone white to pick up all the little details, make them pop. Just going to carefully get that T800i painted in. Now I'm dropping back to the jaw. I'm using a stipply sponge and my dry brushy brush to just stipple on some rust. I want it to look like he's been drooling into this jaw for years and it's almost completely rusted through. Black. Now I recessed this orc's eye's iris, so if I'm really careful I can get a drop of resin in there, and the surface tension will make it dome, and that'll give your eye lots of depth if I don't f*** it up. Excuse me. Nailed it. Time to get this mouth all nice and wet. Like your... No, I won't say it. Cut a long story short, I was told a dog's mouth was cleaner than a human's. Wait. Oh yeah, painting. Tell you what, we've already talked about all the painting techniques I use from this point, and we've discussed orcs in general, so I'm just going to talk about this orc in particular. This is the tale of Zagog the Baby Eater, but he wasn't always known as the Baby Eater. For the longest time he was known as Zagog the fucking Useless. After months of travelling through space in a ramshackle deadnought, Zagog found himself being deployed on an advanced party to conquer a human colonised planet called, Citadel 3. After landing on the planet with the rest of his war party, Zagog, determined to prove himself, ran towards the nearest group of buildings he could see, with carnage in his mind and a skip in his step. Bursting into the closest building, and after seeing its contents, he said a silent prayer of gratitude to Gork and Mork. You see, Zagog had found himself in a human hospital, more specifically, the maternity wing. And like any green-skinned warrior worth his salt, Zagog decided to eat as many human babies as he could, while laughing hysterically at the wails of sorrow that came from the parents. If you ask Zagog, he'll tell you he ate over 20 little humans that day. Now, as we learned earlier, orcs breed asexually, and their knowledge of human biology and reproduction is limited. Unfortunately for Zagog, he was not in a maternity ward. He'd found himself in a cat cafe, which, for those of you that don't know, is a cafe full of cats where people go to force these unhappy cats to interact with them, all the while enjoying a weak coffee full of hair and the smell of piss. So poor old Zagog had in fact eaten over 20 depressed cats, to the horror of the customers who foolishly thought these cats liked them. So yeah, that's the sad tale of Zagog the Baby Eater. Well, it's not so sad, I guess. He's a legend now. He doesn't need to know he ate a bunch of cats. I'm certainly not going to tell him. Right, well that's it. Glamour shots are coming up next. Hope you enjoyed. Bye!
What the fuck is a cat?